Thanks everybody for joining. Thanks to my fellow Misfits, Dennis Bonilla, Matt Campisi, Tim Stevens, and Rydel Nielsen. My name is Jerry Black. Let's get into it. I got a Theodore Roosevelt with you for you today, Dennis. A good Navy is not a provocation to war. It is the surest guarantee of peace.
Or as Jack Nicholson said, you can't handle the truth, man.
I like that. All right. Well, with all that said, it is today is actually Veterans Day. And although the podcast won't come out on Veterans Day, we certainly want to say thank you to all of our veterans that are on our show with us, and all of the veterans that are out there. We want to say thank you for your service. And thanks for everything that you do. Thank you for your sacrifice and your family's sacrifice. We certainly appreciate it.
Let me just say that my years in the United States Navy are the most proud years of my life, to be honest with you.
Wow.
It launched me for the rest of my life in my career post-Navy. It taught me tremendous, levels of excellence that were expected as normal as opposed to extraordinary. And I was surrounded by people that you had to trust with your life. And they had to have your back in a real situation as opposed to, oh, yeah, I got your back at work, hey, whatever, hey, that's pretty cool. I'll support you on this initiative. These were people that were trained to do things in emergencies, in under battle conditions that, you needed to make sure they did their job. And they did it to perfection, or else you were going to die. So I got into the Navy sort of, not by error, but, it was during a time when being in the military was not popular. I had just finished, my school and my college, and I really wanted to go to medical school. And I had goofed off during college in a band, and my grades were not really great for medical school. But I was convinced. I was convinced to apply to the Navy, and I was accepted in their nuclear power program, which is their sort of elite of the elite outside of being a Navy pilot. And so I spent 2 years in school, in nuclear power school, and then they kept me on as an instructor. I had done so well during the school, and they kept me on instructor, teaching physics and chemistry and all sorts of things. And then I finally got deployed, because everybody has to do, patrols. And so I was deployed on the blue crew of the USS Kazimierz Pulaski, 633 Blue. Kazimierz Pulaski was one of the Polish generals who was with us in the Revolutionary War. And the running joke on the Pulaski, there were two running jokes when I arrived. One was that, we only went in reverse because it was named after a Polish.
Low-hanging fruit.
and we also held the record for the highest peacetime tonnage sunk by any submarine. And basically,
was that on purpose?
Well, no, but these things never happen on purpose. So basically, I guess this was before I arrived for patrol. They were on a routine patrol, and they surfaced, and unfortunately, they surfaced underneath it somewhere in the Bahamas, a fishing boat that they were able to magically destroy. People survived on it, but it was the highest peacetime tonnage ever sunk.
Oh wow, that'd be a hell of a fishing trip.
Yeah, life on the submarine was very different. I didn't know what to expect, to be honest with you. I mean, we did psychological testing before they accepted you and all those things, but it doesn't prepare you for the fact that you're going to be literally in a sardine can that could collapse, just like the recent one that those people went on that voyage to go find the
Titanic.
The Titanic.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Obviously, we're designed much differently than that, but at the same time, you are literally underwater with no windows, and you feel like you're in the basement of a building.
Dennis, what's the scale of like how big are we talking? Really?
It's not big. I mean, the diameter of a submarine is about 35 feet. The ones that I was on,
That's
bigger
it?
ones. But think about it, that's three levels. You had an engineering level. You had the the missile level, and then you had sort of the top side level. It's not big and it's not long, and so you arrive there, and before you go out on patrol, you spend 4, 5, 6 days just loading food, and food goes everywhere. You are cramming boxes and this and that, and the freezer can only hold so much, so you only had so much room for fresh food, and then everything else was cans and frozen, et cetera, et cetera. And so, you take off, and the first couple of days, you're just sort of working your way out to some place where you can do a dive. They close the hatches. You're up on top. You're viewing the beautiful landscape like you see in Hunt for Red October. Hey, yay, we're out here, whatever. And then the hatch closes, and you go down, and it's like dead silence, other than machinery whirling, the oxygen generators going, and you're on watch, and you're learning how to qualify for all the watch positions, because everybody has to earn what they call dolphins, and the dolphins are that you have become proficient in all the submarine systems that are on board, so that if flooding happens or anything happens on the boat, you're able to understand what's going on in every valve and everything around the boat. It takes usually about 2 patrols to do that. I got my dolphins in the first patrol.
Wow.
I sort of whizzed through it, and really, I really put my mind to it. It's just like you, Jerry, where you say, "Hey, I just put my mind to how am I going to use the time?" You're there. You're not going to go anywhere. You can't get distracted. So you might as well use the time and do the best you can. You had 3 meals a day, 4 meals a day, actually. Every 6 hours there was food, and every day there was a movie. Now, you got to think back. You got to think back that in those days we didn't have DVDs and all that kind of stuff. This was, we had film, right? And so you would bring on 105 canisters of film.
Oh, wow.
Right? Now, can you tell me, are there 105 movies that you would want to watch? Can you list them? Back then, maybe in the late 70s, early 80s? No.
Wow.
So there was this one movie that we continuously watched after every movie, every night, and that was The Legend of Billy Joe and the Outlaw, because it had a naked scene with Wonder Woman, and we were able to sort of catch a quick of her self-topless.
Linda Cart. Oh,
Linda Cart. And that scene kept playing on and on so much that we finally burnt the film. It was so many times that we had played it.
Hey, Dennis, is it true that you don't have your own bed that you share and you?
No, you come back. I mean, on fast attacks you may do hot bunking, but on boomer, hot bunking would mean that you would have a bunk that you share with somebody else. But on boomers, everybody had their own bunk. You knew exactly what the size of the crew was. You were going to be gone for 105, 110 days. There was none of that hot bunking.
So you could put your shit you have stuff for your own like personal items in your bunk.
Yeah, but when you bring on board, you have one really naps, one of those big military knapsacks full of stuff. You had to have your uniforms for private occasions if you were having to hit port. You had the daily uniform, which we wore what we call poopy suits, and poopy suits were like jumpsuits in the color of the crew, which were blue. And you were literally in jumpsuits all day. Similarly, if you look at the movie Hunt for Red October, right, they're all wearing these blue poopy suits, right, jumpsuits, right? And that's what you wore every day. You took what was called the military shower, which is basic because you made your own water and you made your own air. So you wanted to make sure that you didn't just abuse the resources. And so it would be you'd open the faucet really quick, get wet, you stop it. You lather up, open the faucet really, get rid of the lather, and you stop it, and you're out. And
you still shower like that, Dennis?
Only when I'm by myself.
And Dennis, you said 105 days.
It was 105 days.
That's long.
105 days. We had a little in the control room where the nuclear control room, which is where I worked. There were 4 of us in that room. The officer of the watch and the 3 stations, and we had a board, a chalkboard that we had 105 on there the first day. And then you scratch it and you go to 104. Let me tell you, that thing goes slower than molasses. You're looking up at that thing and you're saying, God, we're still on day 89. Oh, God, 3 months left. What am I? I'm going to kill myself. You know? So you start opening up to the people in the room and you start revealing things that you would never even tell your psychiatrist or your therapist. You're just revealing stuff that's traumatic, and you're reliving it with them, and because you have nothing else, you run out of shit to talk about, right? And so, and then finally, halfway through, we would have halfway night party, and my first experience with the halfway night party was really interesting because everybody on the boat picks a costume of some sort of character, and many people would cross-dress for that show, the halfway night show. So you see, maybe the captain in a female outfit and trying to do some burlesque.
Now we're getting into it.
Yeah, it was quite.
I just woke up.
Yeah, it was quite interesting. But that's only halfway now. You're thinking, holy cow, I have to go another 50. Oh my God, this is going to drag on and on and on and on. About a week before you head into port, this was something I didn't know would happen. They would put out these huge 55-gallon garbage cans, and that was so all the people could dump their porn into the can and get rid of it before they would go home to their wives or their partners or whatever.
Oh, wow.
And so I didn't have any. I didn't bring any. They brought and you're looking at some of the most deviant magazine titles you could ever imagine. It would embarrass Larry Flint to read some of these titles. And you go, I just spent 100 days locked in a can, tuna can, with a bunch of sick bastards. How the hell did I survive without getting raped?
And why didn't they share? I thought you were close. Why wasn't that being passed around?
I don't know.
I also heard corn. And I was like, why would they put their corn in a can before they get back home? That's a weird thing to hide.
That was good.
Hey, Dennis, what about the kind of the psychological transition from being underwater for 100+ days and then coming out? Do they do anything or make you guys experience any type of decompression, or they just open the hatch? And
we'd open the hatch. What was interesting is after 105 days in a closed environment that is mostly machinery, and occasionally we run the diesel bus machinery, air purifier, all sorts of stuff going on. You smell horrible, but you don't smell it on yourself because everybody smells that way. But you get off the boat and people start, you bring the clothes home and nobody wanted to take them out of the bag. They would throw them out in the backyard and leave them airing for days and days and days. One of the funny things was we were stationed out of Scotland, so we would have a charter jet that would take us from Scotland back to Hartford, Connecticut, because our base was in New London. And I can tell you, there were wives and other partners waiting for everybody at the airport, many of them naked underneath a raincoat or something, because the minute that those boys hit the ground and went out into the parking lot, they were making up for 105 days of monastery behavior. It was so funny. And then you get 3 months off, and during those 3 months, the first month you don't need to show up. You just have to check in that you're still alive, and people decompress during those first 30 days. Then the next 30 days and the next 60 days are back in training and doing all sorts of things to keep your skills up or whatever. And then all of a sudden, after 90 days back home, you have to get ready to go back because there's a turnover time between crews. There's maintenance time before you can go off. And so the schedule just repeated itself. And for every patrol you did, you earned a star on your patrol pin. You earned dolphins and you earned a patrol pin. And but I got to tell you, I still have tons of friends that were with me on that boat. I have tons of friends that were with me, and those friendships have never ended. We still stay in touch. We still celebrate our time together. We still love the fact that we served. We love the fact that it was submarines, because submarines have a special sort of feeling in society and sort of bubbleheads, and and the silent service and all that kind of stuff. And it was great. I tell you, I learned so much. I experienced so much. I will never, ever, ever regret having served. I actually feel bad that we don't make military service a little bit more, attractive to the younger generation. I think you mature really quick, man. I'm 21 years old and I'm running, a department. I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but they're teaching you how to be a leader, how to run a department, how to do planning, how to do maintenance, how to this, how to care for a gazillion-billion-dollar killing machine. And
But not even a department. You are sitting next to one of the world's most powerful device, a nuclear reactor, right? Like that is crazy
yes.
at 21.
Yes, operating
A nuclear reactor.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow. That's
And
crazy.
that propelled me on my career in commercial nuclear power, which I did for the next 20 years before I went into
Right.
tech. But the interesting thing about people on the submarine, we didn't have IT as IT would be described today, but we had expertise in electronics because of all the instrumentation and everything that had to do with synchronizing the gyros for the missile, the instrumentation for monitoring the reactor. Everything was all electronic. So we became very, very adept at understanding electronics, electronic circuits, complex systems, and things like that, which then translated into understanding complex nuclear power systems, which were really, heat, water valve, whatever, but very much IT systems, right? Where you have a complex IT system and you understand the interactions of those IT systems. So there was a lot of adjacency skills that were able to be implemented in different sort of complex systems that really started from when I started with electronic systems and nuclear systems on the boat.
Oh man. So I think first of all, if plug in the Air Force, it is so good being an Air Force guy. And Air Force people, they're a little arrogant about this, but the even more arrogant place to be in the Air Force is in IT. You get schooled like nobody gets schooled. Everybody else is going to these couple months schools, right? You're going to year-long schools, in-depth training on like really the best technology, at least at the time. I was getting like cutting edge technology. So I was part of this 2E2, and the 2E2s was a crypto networks and switching systems expert, which is kind of an odd title combination. But I get to my first base, and it's Shaw Air Force Base in South Carolina. So it's hot in Shaw Air Force Base. I don't know if you guys know this. It's very hot, and there's 300% humidity. You need to take 6 showers a day, type of thing, because you're so wet all the time. So our base was going through one of these, we call it an operational readiness exercise. And if you've been through those, it's basically like war game type scenarios to see how the different units are going to perform. And there's these auditors that are watching you and doing check boxes and all these things. So like I actually can't even think of a similar situation in the corporate world where I've gone through. Maybe a big IT audit, but still like way more intense, right? So I'm in the comm squadron, and the comm squadron guys sit in this bunker that has multiple doors, multiple access points, no windows. Like you're back into the essentially a data center with raised floors, right? But you are ultra protected in there. And so we get a call from the flight line, and Shaw Air Force Base at the time was an F-16 base, so it was a fighter pilot base. You know, the whole that we are the best of the best type fighter pilots. And they've got their ground crews there. So I was listed guy. I go down to fix their crypto equipment because the crypto endpoints, they had to sync up between the two endpoints. They had literal keys you have to turn, all that good stuff. So I go down there to fix this guy's crypto. And it's this senior master sergeant that had been in the Air Force for 20 plus years. I don't know, and at the time that seems like forever for a guy that had been in for like a couple of years. You're like, wow, I can't believe this guy's still doing this. old crusty, like just grumpy to see me. Better not look at me because I was a lower ranking airman. Like you better know the respect order. And in the comm squadron, there was this weird thing that if you were pretty smart, you had a lot of power, regardless of your rank, right? Like the smarts actually, it gave you a lot of power. Where on the flight line side, it was you better get your stuff together. And I've always had a challenge with authority, so it was natural to be in the Air Force. I fix his crypto pretty quick. I get going, and just as I'm getting ready to leave, it's an alarm black. So it's a simulated chemical attack on the base. I mean, these big, loud alarms going off. And I look at this senior master sergeant, and he grabs his chem gear, right? So chem gear, if you guys haven't worn it before, it's basically like a whole nother uniform that's got this lining in it with all of this charcoal and all of these absorption materials, right? To keep you safe in a chemical attack. So you slap on the mask first, you lock that thing down, you put your hood on, you put on these big heavy pants and this big heavy coat. And it is primo hot in South Carolina. I'm watching the senior master sergeant, like he's just going to town, getting his chem gear on, like he's sweating while he's getting it on. And then you got to dive under desks, right? So we're essentially sitting underneath this desk together, and I'm looking at him and he's looking at me, and he gets done getting dressed and he's like, "Airman, what the hell? Where's your chem gear?" Which I didn't have. And I said, "Well, Sergeant," because I knew what was going to happen. I was like, "I'm part of the comm squadron, and it's simulated. So let me just put it on here." And I did this, I pulled it out over my head. That guy yelled a stream of obscenities at me for a solid 10 minutes. It's probably still hanging in a cloud somewhere over South Carolina. He was so angry. He was so angry. "Oh, I can't believe this. This is not my Air Force. Who are these guys? Why did they send me?" He called up my commander. "You sent me a guy down here without his chem gear." My commander was like, "We don't have enough chem gear for the whole base. Like these guys are simulated." It was that's when I was like, I made a good choice getting into technology. That was literally like when light bulbs went off.
You really didn't have chem gear, and it wasn't a problem that you didn't. Like yours was literally supposed to be simulated chem gear.
It was supposed to be, yeah. I was a simulated participant in the chem gear.
But you weren't necessarily supposed to.
The actions probably didn't help, and probably my cheesy grin the entire time while he's sweating his just balls off in that South Carolina heat. Underneath that mask, all I could see was his eyes and just the sweat coming down. Matt, you're on.
Did it sound like Darth Vader when he was yelling at you? Like,
oh yeah,
yelling at you.
You can see the pressure of the mask, like kind of trying to come off his face.
I entered the military in 2002, right after high school. And in 2003, I took a trip to Afghanistan to fight they call it the Global War on Terror, or GWAT. Now, America, if you know your history, America at that point had been occupying Afghanistan for about 2 years, right? So right after 9/11. And where we were positioned at was in a airfield, southwest region of Afghanistan known as Kandahar. And at the time, and I even think, I know today, Kandahar, Afghanistan is the fourth poorest country in the world. It's very poor. Their number one export is opium, and it's just a desolate, dirty country. It really is. As far as an infrastructure, there was none. So electricity, running water, waste management, all that, 90% of the country doesn't have that. Okay. So as Americans, I guess, and it wasn't us, I think it was 10th Mountain that showed up before us, that all the waste that they produced would go into a pond, a man-made pond. And you can actually go onto Google Maps and see this pond. It's called the Poo Pond, Poo Pond. So all of our waste was dumped into this pond, literally. And what sits with me, other than the memories, is the smell. And what they would do to try to suppress the smell is the locals would dump lime into the pond as they contributed more to the pond. But the smell was breathtaking. It was amazing. It was amazing. And for some reason, my unit decided to position themselves right next to the pond. But I think the cool part about my story is when I was deployed in 2003, it was all branches. It was the Air Force, it was the Navy, it was the Army, Marines. And naturally, all of us looked at this pond differently. The Army hated it, but understood its purpose. The Air Force wanted to have nothing to do with it. So their base, ironically enough, was on the other side of the compound, their area that they occupied away from the pond, which makes sense. The Navy actually built a little small ship that I guess they made out of scrap wood, and they set the ship out to, I guess they call it, to sea. They put it in the poop pond to let it float around. So I thought that was pretty cool, right? They messed with the situation. The Marines, which I love. My brother is a Marine. He was a Marine. He's always a Marine, as they say. I guess there was a group of Marines that there was a bet that one of them would not jump into the poo pond and swim across from one side to the other.
Oh, please tell me this is not real.
The Marine took the bet and did it. And what ended up happening is they had to evac him out and out of there and into Germany. Germany is our kind of our hub for where our casualties go for that next level medical treatment. So that Marine was sent to Germany. He lived, as far as I know. But I can see myself sitting in this makeshift box that we created meters away from the poo pond, and infantrymen bringing in these missile systems. And, they come in and there's some of these things are destroyed. We had one that brought in, it was a half blown munition. So they're missile systems. So they'd come in and they're so desensitized to handling munitions that they come in and there's like shells still in the missile systems as they just fired them, which they're supposed to take them out. There's no risk of them detonating because they already have. But it's just so funny that they're bringing you these systems that they just fired in war. And they're like, it's not working anymore. And you're just like, you're not in that business yourself. So you're just in awe about, I'm running tests on this system that they just use to destroy something or something. And they're like, oh, sorry, Stevens, let me take that. So let me see if I can tie a parallel here with IT or create a parallel. I think if we all think back to our first day on the job as a tech support or help desk dude or girl, and some of the silly interactions you had, or some of the things that you had that were just ridiculous or just completely just blah, is at the time you're like, you don't really think anything about it, right? You're not excited. Maybe you're not enjoying yourself, but you're creating memories and you don't realize it. And then as you get older, 20 years, 30 years later, Jerry is, for example, is now a consultant where he used to be an engineer. As you reach back and you think about those times, and those are your memories, right? And whether you remember all the details or not, right? It's really cool that you can, by yourself and alone, think about those times that really, really, they shaped who you are. And even today, when I get up and I'm hacking a lung, getting out of the bed in my 40s, I'm like, yeah, that's the poop pond, babe, as I look at my wife. And him and I actually, not only did we cross paths in Afghanistan, but also in Iraq. I served in Iraq as well. And then my other brother, Jonathan, he is a Marine. He was a combat engineer. And I didn't cross paths with him in Afghanistan, but he was in Afghanistan when I was in Iraq. So all three of us In fact, my brother Max and I, we met in the green zone. The green zone is the area in Iraq with the dual sabers, where service units go in and come out. That's how they enter and egress out of the country safely. He was leaving and I was coming in at that time. So there's three of us, and then DJ, who's the one that has the prosthetic leg and who's handicapped. Obviously, him carrying the name of Stevens is not something that. Why do you keep calling me? I guess we could have worked something out if we had to.
I will say thanks to everybody for joining the podcast, and thanks especially to our veterans that are here on the podcast with us. And if you're a veteran listening, thank you very much for your service. Thank you to my fellow Misfits, Tim Stevens, Matt Campisi, Rydel Nielsen. My name's Jerry Black. Have a wonderful day.